Everybody, welcome to this episode of the Launch 3 podcast. I'm so excited. David and I both are excited to have Howard Behar here. Howard, you've been on my other podcast, Think Business, a couple of times. You were the very first guest when I launched that about 2,000 episodes ago. You're the very first guest on the Launch 3. I've always admired you before we spoke and after we spoke, and you constantly are a mentor from afar to me. You are a past president of Starbucks, but more importantly, known as the soul of Starbucks. And one of the things that you shared with me in our talks many years ago was the importance of servant leadership. And as I follow you in social media, you really have held in strong alignment with that. And not only what you post, but what you like and what you share and what you admire in other people's posts. I'm a huge fan of your soul and your servant leadership. And I thought we could start there. Launch 3 is a program for 16 to 28-year-olds to give them tools about life and building their personal brand and building their career, whether it's within a career or within their own business, and growing that. And one of the things I think that maybe, at least I haven't seen a class at any university that teaches servant leadership. And so I think we have to kind of reach out to mentors to have us, to give us exposure to that. And so I thought we could I thought we could start by just you sharing the foundation of what servant leadership is.
Well, at its very core, it tips the whole leadership pyramid on its head. It says that leaders are here to serve, not be served. And primarily, what I believe is that leaders have three primary responsibilities. First thing is to help their people grow as human beings. The second thing is to help their people grow as professionals. And the third thing is to help their people achieve their own personal goals. And when those three things are done well, then the people want to serve the organization. And so that's what I believe that leaders need to focus on. And if they do that well, it all seems to work out.
Yeah.
That's at its base. That's its simplest form. Yeah.
Sometimes things are so simple, they're complicated.
Yeah.
So let's maybe kind of break down and maybe start with help grow the human being. Because I think a lot of times, and I see this as a business coach, sometimes companies forget that we're talking to human beings and we become numbers. And I think during COVID, there was a real focus on wellness and human beings, but we seem to be maybe getting a little bit away from that. And so how do people do that and then stay centered with that?
Well, as a leader, you need to bring resources to bear that help their people become better human beings. But you do that by helping them figure out who they are, number one. I like to say, figure out what hat they wear, and that's defined by their own personal values.
Yeah.
So their own core values. And then the second step is to take those core values and turn them into actions and decisions. In other words, if I say I'm honest, what does honesty mean to me? How do I turn that into an action or decision that I might make in my life? So then the third thing to do is to help their people write down their own personal mission statement, where they're headed in life, what they're trying to be when they grow up, so to speak. I don't know if we ever grow up, but trying to be whatever they want to be. So my personal mission statement goes like this. Every day I want to nurture and inspire the human spirit, beginning with myself first and then for others. And that drives my life. And then the fourth step is to really kind of in a paragraph or some words define how you want to live your life. And I do that according to my 6 Ps. So in essence, then you create a personal plan. What are you trying to do? Because if you don't know where you're going, any path will get you there. What are your goals? And your goals change over time. Right? The goals that I had at 16 are different than the goals I have at 79. So what are those goals and how I'm going to achieve those? And so that's what being a leader is all about, is to help your people do those things.
Yeah. So well said. I don't know if David's frozen. David, are you frozen? Oh, so David, I think maybe that's when he'll chime back in. So let me ask you this. Let's talk about core values, right?
Yeah.
And not only core values, but let's talk about creating a space to actually create your mission and your values. I mean, one of the things I find, Howard, is people have a really hard time structuring themselves. They'll hear this, they'll say this, and then they'll say, well, I'm going to do that. But then unless somebody structures it for them, it's hard for them to actually do it. And so sometimes what I'll suggest to clients is, take 15 minutes a day, take 5 minutes a day. Right. And so how do you recommend that that people create a space to actually build what we're talking about?
Well,
what you're talking about.
First of all, this is not a one-day journey. This is a 6-month journey. And you start by going online. It's easy today. When I first did the work,
That's
I had to I had to go find books and things. Now you can basically do it online. And so you go online and you get it. There's a list of, you type in human values, and there'll be a list of 300 or 400 words that represent human values. And then the goal is to first get it down to 50. And that may take you a month or two. And you do that just like you say. You dedicate some time every day to look at that list, and you start writing down, because the first ones you write down may not withstand the test of time. And so you do that over a period of time, you get it down to 50. Then once you get it down to 50, then you work on getting it down to 8 to 10 core values. Doesn't mean that the other words don't describe who you are in some way, but these are the 8 to 10 core values. These are the things, come hell or high water, you don't break.
Yeah.
And you constantly work to improve it. And so once you get that down, then you can start thinking about your personal mission statement. But this is one of those things that you just got to dedicate the time to. If you don't want to do it every day, take an hour on your weekend and work on it. And but it's got to be a plan.
Yeah.
Howard, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Come on in.
So we have organizational core values, and from our perspective, we typically try to hire in alignment with our organizational core values.
Yes.
Do you find that your organization has its core values, and then your colleagues or the employees might have the same or different core values, or do they typically align?
No, they should align. Doesn't mean they're identical, right? They should align. If you're going to work someplace, you don't want to work in a place that has the opposite values that you have. You don't want to work for a boss that tells lies all the time if honesty is important to you. So you want to try to align your core values with the organization. And the organization, and that's how you choose your organizations that you're going to work for or work with or volunteer for, because then you can go home at night and you don't have that inherent conflict of values being out of alignment.
Yeah. Let's talk about that for a second, because the target audience is 16 to 28-year-olds for this group. And I want to talk about how you just shared, this is how you choose, right? So if somebody comes in and says, somebody takes the time to create everything to be in alignment with their own soul, they can walk in. And in today's world, the 16 to 28-year-olds are interviewing the company as much as the company is interviewing them. And so what would you recommend to the 16 to 28-year-old on how they choose the companies that they work with?
Well, first of all, every company today, pretty much, or most companies, have written down whatever they call it, core values, guiding principles. I don't care, rules of the road, whatever they have. So the first thing to do is to look at that and to see, whether there's at least words alignment, do the words match up? Then you begin the journey of investigation. Now you start to talk to people that work in that company, and you talk about what the company's core values are, and you ask the questions. how well does the organization live up to these values?
Yeah.
Well, right? Treating in Starbucks, the first core value is treating people with respect and dignity. So if I'm talking to somebody that's working at Starbucks, I'm saying, what does respect and dignity mean at Starbucks? And does the company really treat people with respect and dignity, or those are just words? And how do they do it?
Yeah.
Right? And that's what you're looking for. And what you're looking for is the gaps, because no human being or no organization lives up to its core values 100% of the time. So what you want to know is, what are the gaps between what they say and what they do?
Yeah.
And then you're looking for, how big are the gaps? A question that I always think people should ask is, what determines good performance at Starbucks? Okay, or how is good performance rewarded? Or how are mistakes penalized if they're penalized? What happens at organizations when you make a mistake? Right?
Yeah.
So we're trying to find out how the organization believes and how they feel about things, and how they act on those. And then you can compare them to what you believe.
Yeah.
And how you act. And that's kind of the way I would be doing it. I mean, we're not victims when we go to look for a job.
Right.
Right? We're not victims. So it doesn't mean everything's going to be perfect. It's not. There's no perfect places. There's no perfect human beings. And you can go to work for a great company and end up reporting to a boss that's a jerk and doesn't fit your values. And then you try to find a way to get into somebody that represents who you are. But it's your journey. It's your responsibility to figure all this out. Nobody can do it for you. And if you don't know who you are, then how do you determine whether this place is right for you?
Yeah.
If you've never spent any time on defining who you are as a human being, then how do you know? How do you know when you get married? If you don't figure out what are the values of this person that you're thinking about getting married to, and do they align with you? You don't want to end up getting married and a year down the road you figure out that your wife or your husband likes to shoplift.
Right.
Yeah.
That would be a good thing.
So
Find out early.
yeah, find out early.
Yeah, what I think. I think that's a really good point. I think the point for me is that really this is as much as a candidate interviewing the organization as it is the organization interviewing the candidate. And it typically wasn't like that. Typically It was the organization interviewing the candidate, and they were just happy to be there.
Right.
And so I think that these are good points that we can cascade out to our clients and the kids that we're mentoring, to tell them this is as much of an opportunity for you to interview the organization as it is for them to interview you to see if there is that alignment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Most people, I speak a lot at colleges, and they all say, well, I got offered this job, I got to take it. I said, no, you don't. No, you don't. You can always go to work for McDonald's or Starbucks to put a few bucks in your pocket, and until you find the right fit.
Yeah. Let's talk about the right fit for a second, Howard, because a lot of what you're talking about is, if you don't know yourself, how will you know?
Yeah.
And there are a lot of 16 to 28-year-olds right now whose parents have probably maybe done too much for them. And so as they enter the real world, and my wife and I are guilty of that, as they enter the real world, there is more ownership that they need to step into. They need to take ownership. Like you said, they can't be victims. They need to step up and take ownership. And so as you're talking to all of these colleges, how are you expressing that to them?
Well, just basically what we've been talking about, the journey of your life is one that you want to be intentional about.
Yeah.
Right? You don't want to be just floating. You don't want to wake up at my age, for example, and look back at your life and say, what the hell happened? You want to be able to say, I set out to do these things, and did they change from the time I was 16 to the time I was 60? Yes. But I want to at least have direction to my life. Yeah. And then I want to look back at my life and say, did I get everything done I wanted to get done? Probably not, but I did pretty well. Did I live my life according to my values? Yes, I did, or I didn't. Where could I have improved? But you want to be able to look back at your life and evaluate it against your plan.
Yeah.
Against who you said you are. And you want to you don't want to just wait till you're 79. You want to be doing that evaluation all the way along. Before I go to bed every night, I look in the mirror and I say to myself, Howard, how did you do today? And it's against my values and against what I say, how I want to live my life and my mission statement. So, you have to evaluate yourself all the time because it's easy to get off track.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. That's self-evaluation. So I love that before bed. How else, is there other ways that you use to evaluate yourself?
Well, yeah, I mean, you can have other people help you. I mean, one thing to do is we all have friends that we're close to, and you can, I share my core values with everybody that wants to know. So my wife and my kids know my core values. And so sometimes I'll ask them, how am I doing? How am I doing against this? Against, am I giving you the love that you believe that you need? Do you feel like you're trusted? Trust and love are two core values of mine. And so you have to ask questions of others, and the people will share with you how they feel.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the truth of the matter is we're getting a performance review every day from our families or from the people that we work with, whether they say anything or not. They're recording it somewhere, right? Yeah. And so, I have about every month or so, I ask my wife, how are we doing? And I got started on that because we were struggling over some things. And so I started to get in the habit of checking in, not waiting until there was a blow up. And it's the same thing with you can do that with your friends, you can do that with your coworkers, and you got to be willing to take, sometimes the feedback isn't going to be something you maybe want to hear, but better to get it now than to not get it at all, because the goal of life is constant learning, constant self-improvement.
Yeah.
Get better every day.
I love, I could listen to you speak for hours, Howard. I just want to share a quick story. My business coach, when I was in my early 40s, sent me to his attorney, who was a mentor. And I was deciding if I should leave my career and start my company. And as I was leaving, I was literally leaving, and he looked at me and he said, "Hey, I got one more thing to share." I said, "Yeah." He said, "If you do nothing, you'll regret it." And that was all I needed to hear. That line was so powerful to me because I could fast forward and say, okay, when I'm 90 years old, I'm going to look back if I do nothing and I will regret it. It was a really, it just made me think of that as you were sharing that. I want to talk a little bit about building a habit, as you shared before. The way I kind of reverse engineer a habit is a goal is powered by a routine, which is powered by a habit. If you have the routine in place, then you just have to manage the habit.
Right.
So I think sometimes there's almost, I think a lot of people struggle with discipline of consistency to say, hey, this is a habit for something I'm going to do, like you said earlier, every day or, every Wednesday, whatever it is. And so there's a great book. Let me just say this. Your books are amazing. It's not about the coffee and the magic cup. That can be bought on Amazon.com. I love those. But there's also another great book by Stephen Pressfield called The War of Art. And I don't know if you've read it, but I love all of his books. If you give me your address, I'll send it to you after the show as a thank you. And what he talks about is he defines the word resistance, why we resist things. And so talk about how people can build a habit and not resist.
Well, there's a famous quote by Ray Kroc. It goes like this: feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Or there's another one called turn your fear into faith. Most of us resist because of fear. Fear of failure, fear we're not good enough, fear we won't make it, whatever the fear is. And so I have over these last, really, gosh, it's 50 some years, I've used affirmations to help create good habits. And there's two affirmations that I have used consistently. And one goes like this: I am enough, I have enough, I do enough. It's to constantly reminding myself that I am okay, right? That I am okay. Because a lot of times we get in this trap, well, I'm not good enough. I'm not talking about not wanting to improve here, but that self-talk that keeps you trapped in the cycle of fear.
Yeah.
Then the other one I use is I love myself unconditionally. Right? Hard to do sometimes. I have that quote sitting above my toilet. And I figure if I can love myself there, I can love myself anywhere.
Yeah.
But I think affirmations are really critical in this journey towards creating good habits. And so, when I was smoking, I created, I can't remember the exact words now, but affirmations always have to be seen in the completed form, said in the completed form. So I no longer, I don't smoke, and I feel much better because of it. I think that was about and it took me a while, but after about a month or two, all of a sudden the desire for smoking went away because I was repeating that affirmation to myself all the time. And I'd put them down on a little 3x5 card and I'd carry them with me.
It's interesting. You construct them as if they've already been done.
Yeah.
As if they're already achieved. And so I have an exercise that I put a life plan together, and I have 7 different areas that I sort of map out and craft what it is that I want to have happen in those 7 areas. And I write it in the tense that it's already happened.
Yeah. I believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do too.
It needs to be in the tense that it's already happened and in Technicolor.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The more
not black and white in Technicolor. You got to see it with the beautiful colors of you completing it, and and all the emotion that goes with that.
Yeah.
Done.
That's a key component of manifesting the emotional part of it. The emotion has to be there.
Yeah.
It accelerates the process.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
What else would you put in a life plan, Howard?
Well, I have a 5-year plan. All right. So and with my 5-year plan are my values, my mission statement, and what I call my 6 Ps. But at 79, having a 5-year plan starting to get optimistic. But
did you ever see the movie, Howard? Did you ever see the movie The Intern with Robert De Niro?
Oh yeah, sure.
That's one of my favorite movies. And so he's interviewing, and he goes, okay, Howard. He has his pen. He goes, okay, not Howard. He goes, okay, where are you going to be in 10 years? And he goes, when I'm 80. He said, you're right. You got the job.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. So I have headings across. By the way, I not only do this for myself, but my wife and I we do it together. She has her own individual one, I have my own individual one, and then we have a combined plan. And so the headings are, I won't have them all here, but spirituality, material, economic well-being, environment, children, grandchildren, family, travel, personal growth, what we used to call careers, now we call life's work. And then we set 3 to 5 goals under each of those headings. And that usually it's 1, 3, and 5 years. Some are shorter. And we write most of them in the completed tense. Like when I had a monetary goal when I was about 25, I said, okay, I make $30,000 a year. Now, that was a lot of money in those days. Doesn't seem like much today, but it was. Now, most amazing thing was I went screaming past that $30,000, but it was in the present tense.
Yeah. I love
You know
it.
what? There's one that in my life plan seems to mirror that. I have my mission, my vision, my values on there too. There's one other area that I had put on that I included in my life plan, and that was charity and giving back.
Yeah, right. I have that too. Yeah.
Okay. Then we're right here.
Yeah, we have that too. We have one called our marriage.
And that's one I don't have. And I have my relationship with my wife, but I love the idea of doing that together with her.
Yeah, why wouldn't you want to do that? I mean, we've been doing it. We've been married 47 years, and now we do it every 2 or 3 years, But we used to do it every year. We'd go away for a weekend, get a couple of great bottles of wine, and we'd go in our separate places and write up where we wanted to go and underneath all those headings. Then we come back and present to each other. Only non-judgmental questions could be asked, clarifying questions. And where we had conflicts, we worked them out.
That's a great exercise. I'm doing it.
Yeah, I'm going to do
and
it.
you're never too young to start this.
Yeah.
And you're never too old to start it. If you're 80 years old and you haven't done it, do it. If you're 15 years old and you haven't done it, do it.
Yeah.
You'll be blown away about what it does for you.
Yeah. When I was in my early 20s, I started listening to Tony Robbins' 30-day personal power. And then I years later found, the booklets, after, many years had gone by, and everything in it, even the way I described what I thought my wife would look like, was so detailed. So I agree. I think it's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
How did you get so wise? Take us back. You shared your 79 before we went on, started press record. We were talking, for a millisecond about your dad, but you're 79. So take us back 60 years, 70 years. Like, who were the mentors in your life that planted these powerful seeds of, I'm going to say, simplicity and wisdom?
My parents, they always comes at a family of origin stuff. And my dad understood that you didn't need to get paid for everything you do in life. That you do things because it's the right thing to do. He had a small mom and pop grocery store. So, his customers were his neighbors and his friends. I mean, they were friends and neighbors. And so, everybody had a charge account in those days. There were no credit cards, and they had these little books with the charge accounts. Oh, Tucker, thanks for coming. Hold on 1 minute. I'm going to close the door. Okay?
Yeah.
Sorry.
While we're waiting for Howard to come back, David, what do you think so far?
I think it's great. I apologize. I am having some technical difficulties here. It might be, we'll get it fixed up, but
yeah, you're good.
I love your question on the mentors.
Yeah. He's just Howard's a quality guy. All of his. No, you're good. I can hear you. But what I love about everything he shares is it just sounds so simple and so easy. Can you hear me okay, David?
I can hear you okay. And actually, that's the way it's supposed to be, right? We complicate it. We complicate it. So can you hear me?
Yeah, perfectly.
Maybe I should switch browsers. I don't know. Maybe.
No, you're good right now. I can hear you great.
Life's good in the Behar household now. Both dogs are back.
All right, good.
One is filthy, but that's that's what he got into. Okay, so anyway, you learn things by living life. If you're aware, and you try to be aware of what's going on around, because there's something to learn by every situation, every human being you meet. Period. There always is something to learn.
Yeah.
And my dad taught me a lot. And then, fortunately along the way, I had mentors that I have them as mentors. There are people that I work with that taught me things. Yeah. But by the time I was in my mid-20s, I went to work for a guy that became probably the most significant mentor in my life. And he was the one that taught me all of this. Because up until that point, I was just happy Howie, diddling along, not thinking about my values, not thinking about what I wanted to do in life. I had dreams, but no goals. There's a difference, because goals are written down. See, dreams are just dreams.
Yeah.
So
I love it.
And so, and so he taught me about all these things, and he taught me about affirmations. He was the one that introduced me to servant leadership.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
And he changed my life.
Yeah. You've been on a path to change a lot of people's lives. And I know at Starbucks, you were known as the soul of Starbucks. And so talk about some of the, what you did and what you learned during your time at Starbucks.
Well, what I brought to Starbucks was this idea that we're all here to do one thing, and that's to serve other human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And I brought basically the concepts of servant leadership to Starbucks, because I started to learn those in my mid-20s. And so I was 44 by the time I got to Starbucks. And so I brought resources in, Jim Autry in, we brought Warren Bennis in from UCLA, we brought in Peter Drucker, all people that were, they didn't use the term servant leadership, but were really taught the concepts of servant leadership. So, and it was not easy at the beginning, because, like all small entrepreneurial companies, they were focused on the product. And so everybody thought we were in the coffee business. I said, yes, we are, but actually we're in the people business serving coffee, not in the coffee business serving people. And I wanted to convince everybody that we were going to be different, and that's how we were going to drive the business. So, that's, and I was relentless about it. Not mean or anything like that, but I constantly reinforce. So I have, I always believe you give trust before you get trust. So I came in trusting everybody.
Yeah. I think Howard's a little
frozen. Yeah, I don't. Yeah.
How are you there?
I was thinking it was mine.
Well, while we're waiting for Howard to kind of come back on, I love that whole concept of, you got to give trust before you get trust. I think a lot of times people get that wrong.
I do think they do. And you know what's interesting, John, and we were just talking about this 2 days ago, within, over 35 years of being in business, there are many things that happen, and we have been treated very different ways over 35 years of business, from clients to employees to vendors. And the truth of the matter is it would be very easy when you get, let's just say, when somebody is untruthful and lies to you and does something
Right.
to you that doesn't resonate with your core values. It would be easy to get salty and to think that this is the way it's always going to be. But the truth of the matter is that we have always said to ourselves that no matter the behavior of other people, we will continue to stay on this sort of path of behaving, taking the high road.
Yeah.
No matter what their decisions are or how far they want to go with messing with, us or lying, this and that and the other thing, we continue to take the high road. We were just talking about it yesterday, and that path seems to have worked for us for 35 years because it always comes back.
Yeah.
We've always tried to take the high road, no matter what the circumstance, no matter what everybody else is doing. Stick to a north-facing moral compass.
Yeah.
Make those decisions. It seems to come back.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to ask Howard.
Yeah. Well, when he comes back, when his internet maybe it comes back, but but to your point, and we were talking about this earlier today, the whole idea of responding and not reacting. And I was sharing a quote that I heard in a book today that I had never heard before, by Thomas Jefferson. When angry, count to 10 before you speak. If very angry, count to 100.
Right.
which I thought was great.
Yeah.
I'm going to email Howard as we're kind of
and that's one of my affirmations: respond, don't react. It's something
Yeah.
that I have a hard time doing, actually.
It is Howard, you joining. Yeah, I think it's I call it kind of I have kind of, I call it this like inner Wengrow. It's my grandpa had this temper. Let me see if this is let me see if this is Howard. Hold on.
Yeah.
This is John.
Howard,
we've had a little technical difficulties, so we don't need to edit. Let's just pick it up. We're back. David, take it away.
Howard, so I thought you brought up an interesting point. We were just talking about this a few days ago. Being in business for 35 years, things are going to happen. People are going to act the way they act, and situations are going to happen. And I can see people once they are lied to or things happen within business, getting salty and not maintaining the idea of serving others. And so when it's happened to you throughout the years, and I would assume it's happened to you in business and from employees, when things are done to you, how do you react? How do you stay on the path of serving others and taking the high road?
Well, if your values are written down and your mission is clear in life, then you always are going back to that. That's why it's so important to have it written down, because like they say,
John?
Yeah, no, I'm here.
Did we lose him?
I think we lost him again.
It's all right.
He looks good. Like he looks like he's
handsome, strapping.
Like he's still talking to us. Yeah.
Like I said, go ahead. So like I said, no stressful situations, only stressful responses. So in life, one of the keys to life is how you manage your responses, because we're dealing with all sorts of little situations that can cause stress. Somebody cuts you off in traffic. How are you going to respond? Right? Your wife says something you don't like. For the 1,000th time, she said, "Don't leave the damn toilet seat up." Right? How are you going to respond? Or at work, somebody does something wrong or something that gets screwed up. How do you respond? And so we can choose how we respond, but you got to be aware.
Yeah.
And so, to me, that is one of the keys, is learning to manage that. And it's not easy. I mean, I'm the pot calling the kettle black, because I grew up with a father that had a fiery temper, man. He would go up like a rocket and down equally as fast. I inherited some of that. So I really had some baggage that has been with me my whole life, and I've had to learn how to manage that. I mean, I would, Howard Schultz might do something I didn't like, and I would go boom. Wasn't exactly the best thing to do to your boss, but fortunately he put up with it.
No, I think that's a really good point. My dad was the same exact. My dad had a fiery temper, and I was thinking about it before when you were talking about
It seems to be a thing.
He went dead too, David.
Well, while we wait for him to come back, what I'll share is I call it my inner Wengrow. My middle name is Wengrow. It's my grandfather. It's my mom's maiden name.
Yeah.
And he had a temper, and I'm pretty even keeled. But if something kind of ignites me, I have to kind of temper what I call my inner Wengrow. It's like, my grandfather's temper was completely, had no, he didn't have some boundaries that he probably should have. It couldn't have worked in today's world, I don't think, even though he was a kind, gentle giant in many ways.
Yeah, that was my dad. I have this board of directors that sits on my shoulders, and they're talking to me all the time. And one of them is my dad, whose name was Albert. And I call him Albert.
Yeah.
Am I back?
I have to say, "Hey, Albert, be quiet."
Yeah.
Because those voices are talking to you all the time, and they're trying to influence you in the decisions you make and the actions you take.
Right.
And so how do you learn to manage that? And that becomes from awareness.
Yeah.
Where am I?
Yeah.
You know, that it's that taking that 2 seconds to ask yourself that question, where am I?
Right. You talk about checking in. My wife will say to me sometimes, my grandpa's name was Sam. So she'll say, Sam. And I'll know, like, just to kind of like bring it down on something. In the spirit of this, and you shared this story with me, and I want to say, I think it was in your book too, but can you share the story about when this had a big impact on me? I've shared it a lot. When the list got the list of people you needed to lay off and the meeting you were going to have with everybody. Can you share that story? Can you share that story, Howard? Do you remember what story I'm talking about the list of people you had to get laid off, and then you had a meeting with the board?
So it was my first time ever being president of a company, and I had just been promoted to president. It was a company that kind of had problems, and I didn't realize how big the problems were. And I got my team together, and I said, we got to figure out what we're going to do. We got to cut costs. And it's the first time I'd ever thought about a layoff. I'd never been part of a layoff. Didn't even all. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. We went through all the different departments and decided who we were going to lay off. And so my administrative assistant had typed up all the names, and the head of human resources took that list and went to the copier and made a copy to give to everybody. Unfortunately, she left the original on the copier. So by 8 o'clock that night, the phone was ringing off the hook. And, now I had to figure out what I was going to do. So I called the team together for next morning. It was Saturday morning. I said, what are we going to do? And we went around the room, and one person said, well, just tell them it's not something we're going to do. We're just going to think about it. We're just something we're thinking about it, but it's not going to happen. And my administrative assistant, named Lori Christmas, looked at me and she said, Howard, only the truth sounds like the truth. And so that next Monday, I called the whole, about 1,500 people. We all got together, and I laid out the whole thing. I said, I don't know who's going to get laid off or who isn't going to lay it off. And I thought that was going to be my last day on the job, But one person stood up and said to me, Howard, thank you for being honest and truthful with us. And I don't know if I'm going to be one of the ones that gets laid off, but I want you to know I will do everything I can to help you. Yeah. And one by one, people stood up and they all committed. And so, all the fear I had about telling the truth about the layoffs went away. And I realized that only the truth sounds like the truth. And if you tell the truth, it'll work out no matter what.
Yeah.
Even if you get fired.
Howard, I have probably used that line and given you attribution no less since we spoke 1,000 times. So thank you for that. So because I think it just resonates. It's such a high frequency. It is it's beautiful. So thanks for sharing that story.
Well, it was a lesson I had to learn, and I had fears about telling the truth. Yeah. I thought that people were going to reject me, and because of all the things that happened. But what I realized from then on, I just said, this is how I am going to act. I am always authentic. I'm always vulnerable, and I'm always truthful.
Yeah.
Period. Even when the truth is not hurts, but I do it in a loving way. So that's all.
Yeah. Love it. Thanks for sharing that. David, I know you had a question. Did you have a question?
Well, going back to what we were talking about there, when you said that your dad also was up here, and then my dad had that snap temper too, and then he would come down. There was things that I wanted to take from him and bring into my own repertoire as a parent and maybe as a husband. And there was things that I did not want to. And I think we have a choice. And so the question is for you, were there things that you knew that you wanted to take from those people around you and things that you just did not want to take?
Yeah. The guy that I was talking about before, most important mentor, had the most incredible bright side. he taught me so many unbelievable things and held me accountable for things. But he had an incredibly dark side. I mean, a dark side that, in today's world, you'd be in jail probably. And I had to learn to separate those things. And I had to learn to accept the good and to push the evil, bad aside and not to repeat it and to hold him accountable on the bad. When he got out of line, I had to be able to go to him and say, that's a little bit, that's off track. You can't do that. And that was hard. It was hard. I believe this. You got to be willing to bet your job every day.
Yeah.
Because if you don't live by your values, what do you have to live by?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about, in the spirit of what you just shared, lessons, right? David texted me something this morning that said, we learn from theory, we learn from doing, we learn from mistakes, right? So, which I loved, by the way, that you sent that. It said like how much you learned and the stuff we're talking about, lessons. I can point to a laundry list of things that I shared a little bit about my grandfather and my parents too, that I want to bring, and things that I have to meditate a lot to leave behind. And so what are what's maybe the one or two key lessons that you took that you didn't even know you were going to get along the way?
Well, the one my father taught me, which was not everything you do in life do you need to get paid for, or do you need to get recognized for. Pay comes in all different forms. Not everything you do in life do you need to get a trophy for. Mm-hmm. Not everything you do in life do you have to get money in your pocket for. Not everything you do in life do you need to get rewarded or complimented on. You do things because they fit with who you are. And no matter whether you get something for it or not. I always say that I don't like the word customer, because when you use the word customer, it implies that the people have a dollar bill pasted to their forehead. And if you just say the right thing or manipulate them in some way or another, you'll get that dollar bill. And I used to try to teach at Starbucks, we're not after the customers' dollar bills. Okay, we're trying to build relationships, and sometimes you get paid for what you do, and sometimes you don't, and that's okay. And you have to learn to deal with that in life. And I think that was probably out of all the things I learned in my life, it's actually how I got to Starbucks. Howard and I had this 1 year long dance, and I won't go into the whole story, but I ended up interviewing with him once, and then the second time about a year later. And I said to him, look, can I work in the company for a week? I want to do it for free. You don't pay me. You don't put me on the pay, but I want to work in the stores for 2 or 3 days. I want to work in the plant for a couple of days, and I want to work in the trucks. At the end of that week, if you like me and I like you, we'll do something together. But I don't want anything for it. And that set in motion. He just looked at me and said, "You're kidding me, right?" I said, "No, I'm not. That's what I want to do." And so that built trust between us, and I got to see what was really going on. I got to see firsthand what the gaps were between what they said and what they did. And he got to see me in action, right? Who I was as a human being. So that was probably, out of all the lessons I've learned in my life, that's probably it.
It's good. That's good. What do you do to keep your mindset, to get your mindset back to center?
In front of my, it's not right here, but as I look, I'm not in my office now, but as I look in my office, ahead of me is a piece of paper that I call a picture of Howard in 50 words or less. It has my mission statement, my value statement, and my guiding and my 6 P's. And those 6 P's are everything I do in my life has to have a purpose greater than myself. If I have a purpose greater than myself, then I damn well better be passionate about it. And the 3rd P is persistence, because it takes persistence to get through through life. We're constantly faced with rocks in our rivers. We got to get over them, around them, or we got to blow them up. Yeah. And the 4th P is patience. Not everything comes in the time frame that you want it to come. The 5th P is performance. Whether we like it or not, we get measured every day, and performance counts. in life, whether it's at work or at home. And then the sixth P, the most important P, there's nothing you will do in life that isn't about serving another human being, whether you're a widget maker, whether you're a podcaster, whether you're a barista, whether you're a doctor or lawyer. It's always about serving another human being.
Yeah.
And so I just keep that focus. And so I do. And, sometimes it's little tiny things. To nurture and inspire the human spirit is as much as picking up a piece of paper off the street, putting it in the garbage, and so I just try to live my life every day, and I'm trying to serve somebody every day.
How can a 16 to 28-year-old serve someone every day while they're still trying to figure out, how to live, how to get through and grow each day and figure out and make the big decisions of, career and what to do and where to go?
Well, first, what's your relationship in your family? How do you serve your family? How do you serve your parents, or how do you serve your siblings? And what I mean by serve is, how do you interact with them? Do you treat them with caring, kindness, and love and trust, or are you always in conflict? You choose to be in conflict. Nobody's forcing you to be.
Yeah.
Your parents make you mad. All right, so they say something you don't like. Have a loving conversation with them. Dad, what you just said made me mad, and here's why.
Yeah.
Right. And versus blowing up and walking out of the room and running out of the house. You can make a choice. So how do you serve your friends? Are you honest with your friends? Do you care about your friends? Do you tell them the truth? Or do you do things only for your own benefit?
Yeah.
Howard, how would your grandchildren describe you in one sentence?
My grandkids, in one sentence, he means what he says.
How would you define yourself in one word?
To define myself in one word, purposeful.
I love it. What one piece of advice would you give somebody who can't find their purpose? I think sometimes right now people are having a hard time finding what their purpose is, right? Finding that direction. I think, and not just 16 to 28-year-olds, but people out of COVID, post-COVID are trying to reconnect there.
Yeah. Well, it takes work sometimes, and you have to do different things and look at different things. But look, your purpose, the primary purpose of human beings, is to serve other human beings. Now, how do you do that? That's your decision.
Yeah.
But that if you want to have a fulfilling life, focus on that. You may get tired, but you'll never burn out or you'll never bore out if you focus on serving others. If you can make the connection between what you do, right, and how that serves another human being, you're going to have a fulfilling life, even if you're in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah. What advice would you give a married couple to stay married for 51 years?
Figure out who each of you are. You better have clarity about who each of you are as a human being, what your values are, what each of your mission statements, so to speak, is, and what goals you have and what you want to accomplish. And you better be able to help your partner achieve their goals.
Yeah.
We're there to help each other get better in life and to serve each other. And so my wife wanted to get a PhD. Well, in those days, we didn't have much money. So she was going to be in school a long time. And her dad didn't even get her through college. I had to get her through undergraduate, graduate, and then a PhD level. But we figured out how to do it together. I traveled all the time. We figured out how we were going to keep our family together when I was traveling so much. But we discussed it in those planning sessions. So I would encourage everybody, if you have a significant other in your life, if you're married, have that planning session.
Yeah.
You'll be amazed, and you got to repeat it over a number of years. And remember, only clarifying questions, no judgmental questions. Because if your wife says, this is what I want to accomplish, your job is not to tell her, no, she can't do that, or no, we can't afford that. Your job is to help figure out how you can do it.
Yeah. I love it. Do you have a favorite book? Howard, or a book that's had a big impact on you?
Oh God, there's been so many books. One of my favorite books that's most recent would be The Boys in the Boat. And The Boys in the Boat tells a story about the University of Washington crew in the 1936 Olympics, and how these kids came from nowhere without anything, and they won the Olympics. It's about teamwork, about caring about each other, about dealing with conflicts, about supporting each other and having a greater purpose.
Yeah. I heard that's an incredible book.
It is incredible.
I'm going to read it. Yeah, I've heard. Yeah. David, any more questions? This was phenomenal.
Howard, what's the favorite drink that Starbucks makes?
I drink triple tall Americanos. That's my drink. No sugar, no cream, just 3 shots of espresso and plus 8 ounces of water.
I like it.
That'll get you going.
That'll get you going.
Yeah, if I drink 3 of those, I'm invisible.
Yeah. Howard, I can't thank you enough. You are just, to me, the ultimate mentor and the ultimate mensch. I appreciate all your insights, your wisdom, your authenticity, and just, showing that things can be done the right way, from a very heart-centered servant leadership place, that requires, a lot of us to just get back into our hearts and get grounded and be in alignment with who we are. And if we don't like who we are, we got to do the work to become who we want to be. So I appreciate everything that you shared today. And I appreciate you being the first guest on this show. I appreciated you being the first guest on mine many years ago. And I just can't thank you enough. I just think the world of you and everything that you represent. David, I'll let you close it up, and then we'll maybe let Howard give his final words.
That's hard to follow, John. That's very hard to follow. If I've taken one thing away from this conversation, it's serve others. I've thought about it. I've wrote about it in my narrative, and it's something that continues to percolate to the surface during my daily life. And so many messages are telling me it's all about serving others. Episode number 7 on the Behar is about serving others. And so it's something that we have to really delve into deeply in our Launch 3 program, John.
Yeah, I agree. Howard, any last words of wisdom?
Yeah, well, I talked about writing down your values, writing down your mission, and a paragraph about how you want to live your life. Do it. And then have a plan. Don't live your life with intention. You will be amazed at what you accomplish when you do. Yeah,
it's great. Everyone, tell people where they can learn more about you, follow you, and all.
So here's my email address. It's hb@howardbehar.com. hb@howardbehar.com. My cell phone number is 206-972-7776. I will respond to everybody. I may be slow, but I'll get back to you.
Yeah. You responded to me when I emailed you 7 years ago. I heard you on a podcast, and you said, if anybody wants to have, talk to me or have me on my podcast, email me. So I emailed you that minute, and you responded to me, and I'm grateful for the friendship. And I can't thank you enough. Right. Launch community, launch-3.com. If you're interested in joining David and my coaching group, Howard, maybe you'll come for a Wednesday workshop.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd love to do that. We
would love to have you. And thanks again, everybody, for listening. Howard, thanks again. David, this is a blast doing it together. And, appreciate everybody. Howard, stay on the line for just a second. Thanks, everybody.